Hi, and welcome to The Law Simplified. I'm Shaveen Bandaranaike. On a number of occasions on this very YouTube channel, as well as the different platforms that The Law Simplified is disseminated on, I tend to use a very particular phrase to illustrate what a law degree is. Essentially, I've suggested on a number of occasions that a law degree is much more about how you think as opposed to what you know. Henry, who is a student of The Law Simplified, an alumni of The Law Simplified, as well as someone who's been following the YouTube channel and the various videos that I've been putting out, reached out recently and asked me what I exactly mean when I say how to think. So firstly, thank you, Henry, for the question. And because I understood what he meant by this and why there might be a confusion, I felt that others who have watched my videos as well as followed The Law Simplified might have the same confusion. Rather than going through the general rigmarole of a video in trying to explain this, I thought we should try a worked example so that it's much more clearer and it's something that you can apply in terms of your assessments as well as summative or formative assignment submissions. I hope you find this video and this illustration useful, and if you like the content that I make on this channel as well as the different platforms The Law Simplified is disseminated on, make sure you give a thumbs up and do subscribe to The Law Simplified. Let's get into it. To illustrate what I mean by showing an examiner how you think as opposed to just what you know, let's have a look at an example from a commercial law question. Now, for those who are unacquainted, this is a question or a component of a question or an extract of a question relating to the law of agency, as we find in commercial law. Idris owns a restaurant. He appoints Michelle as restaurant manager to run it. Idris expressly prohibits Michelle from placing orders for goods with anyone other than his regular suppliers. Idris has informed his regular suppliers of Michelle's appointment. Michelle is also aware that Idris has a cash flow problem due to several account customers being slow payers. Idris has decided to refuse to accept any further bookings from such account customers until their accounts are cleared. Colin is an account customer. He makes an account booking for 100 people, which Michelle gladly accepts. It subsequently transpires that there is a large amount of money outstanding on Colin's account. Now, just to give a quick TLDR, so to speak, to make sure that you have a brief understanding of how this operates, agency or the law of agency relates to the relationship between a principal, an agent, and a third party. Effectively, where the principal has granted authority or certain types of authority to an agent in order to fulfill objectives on his behalf and enter into contracts on his behalf with third parties, thereby creating a contract not between the agent and the third party, but with the third party and the principal himself. So essentially, to cut a long story short, an agent is bound by the authority that he or she is given by the principal, and that if and when the agent is to go outside of his or her authority, then there are disputes that may arise, and depending on the agency relationship, either the principal can be sued by a third party or vice versa. Now, looking at the scenario before us, the most pertinent aspects that we will have to consider is in relation to the authority that has been granted to Michelle by Idris and what has happened subsequently. Now, it's clear that on the one hand, Idris has expressly prohibited Michelle from placing orders for goods with anyone other than the regular suppliers. What has transpired later, at least from the extract that I have used for this example, is that it has nothing to do with this particular prohibition or this express prohibition. Other than that, it also suggests that Michelle is aware that Idris has a cash flow problem and that he has decided to not take on any account customers until whatever their accounts are cleared completely. Now, if we take these two specific factors into account, a good student, someone who knows the law as well as applies it in relation to an examination question, might argue that from the perspective of Michelle being the manager of this establishment, there is nothing to suggest that Colin wouldn't be able to make a booking for the 100 people, and that essentially, regardless of the circumstances that Idris might have in terms of his mindset, he would be bound by this account booking. But on the other hand, if we position ourselves in the shoes or in relation to the agent herself, in relation to Michelle, the question to be asked is whether she has violated authority. Now, off the bat, you might consider that, considering her knowledge, considering the fact that she was aware that Idris has a cash flow problem, she is in violation of his wishes. But in order to show an examiner how you think, the better way to go about it is to specifically show the fact that Idris has gone out of his way to expressly prohibit certain things in relation to what Michelle is not supposed to do. In that backdrop, what is implicit by it is the fact that if he did not want her to take on account customers, considering the cash flow issue, he would have prohibited that as well. So if I am to illustrate once again, since there is one provision separate to the one that we are considering that suggests that Idris as the principal has prohibited Michelle from doing something, there is nothing to indicate why he shouldn't have done the same in relation to bookings from account customers. So not having done that, the presumption is that it wouldn't be as big of an issue, at least from the perspective of authority, either implied or implicit or usual authority, for Michelle to have gone ahead and booked those customers. This in turn would mean that Colin's booking is secured and that Michelle hasn't essentially breached her duty in terms of the express authority granted to her, or rather the actual authority granted to her. But having said that, if we go a step beyond, there is a clear violation of her fiduciary duty, the duty that she has in utmost good faith towards her principal, considering the fact that she was aware of the cash flow problem. Now, the reason why this illustration makes it possible for me to explain how to think as opposed to what you know is because most students will stop at the fact that clearly there is a breach of fiduciary duty, and that would be a correct answer. But to go on and use another component of the question or of the scenario to show an examiner that you understand that the presence of one thing may not essentially be the absence of something else, shows the examiner more than anything else unequivocally that you are thinking in a different manner. And it is this thinking that turns a pass to that of a 2-2 or a 2-1, or a 2-1 to that of a first class. I hope this illustration was clear, and if there are any further questions that any of my students have, as well as any of you watching on the YouTube channel, as well as wherever the Law Simplified is disseminated on, I'll leave several links in the description so that you can reach out. Do check out the online law school platform, which has comprehensive workshops for most of the subjects that are taught in different LLB syllabuses around the world. That being said, until the next time that we meet, have fun, stay safe, and as always, obey the law.